Hacknight. So we're going to be hearing from Benjamin Shahin, who is going to talk about his project, the Human Network. The Human Network is a location-based political social network which empowers people to change government policy. So Benjamin did his BA in Corporate Social Responsibility in Law at York and his MA in Politics and Conflict in Israel. So Benjamin, come on up.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
That's good. Okay. All right, so first of all, I want to thank Gabe and everyone at Civic Tech for giving me this opportunity to speak here. Also, someone mentioned that they came here to restore faith in humanity. I didn't see exactly who it was. I just want to say it's very inspiring to be in a room full of people who all actually want to change the world around them and take proactive actions to go ahead and do that. My project is, as you mentioned, a location-based political social network that is aimed to empower people to change government policy. How I aim to do that is by studying demographics in real time. I found that in my time in Israel that there was a lot of conflict between the Arabs and the Jews. And what I found was that a lot of that came from negative media coverage of situations that didn't really represent the reality on the ground. I found that the reality on the ground was that most of the people get along, and the media paints a picture that makes it look a lot worse than it really is. And that was my inspiration to create this system. I had the chance to talk to Edward Snowden on a video conference, and I asked him, due to all the corruption that you've witnessed in your life, would you advocate for a more direct democracy? A democracy where people are more involved in actual policy decisions. And his answer pretty much was that it would be a pessimistic view on human capability to think that we've come up with the best version of democracy. So that really inspired me to go ahead and create this system. Now, the idea is, as I mentioned, location-based systems. So how exactly do I aim to give people that power of changing government policy without creating anarchy and a problem too big to solve? Is First I want to talk about the problem. The problem is that you have lobby groups right now who have massive amounts of money and are able to influence policy on a level that can sometimes take the voice of the average citizen and make it disappear. Another one of the issues is that there's lack of accountability in government, and that is because after someone gets elected, very often he's able to forget all the promises he made during his campaign and ignore the voice of the people once again. The media is very agenda-based, and I don't know if you guys are familiar that in 1987, I believe it was, that Reagan abolished something called the Fairness Doctrine. The Fairness Doctrine said that media outlets had to cover two sides of each issue. In 1996, what happened was the Telecommunications Act said that one company can own more than just one single newspaper and TV station in a single city. And what that did is it created a massive amount of consolidation in media. And media was then able to report however they wanted. They swallowed up all the smaller companies. As you can see, over the years, I think it says 90 media companies became something like 6. And one of the other issues that I'm aiming to address is that people don't really own their data today. The cost of using services like Google and Facebook is that you pretty much give your data to all these companies, and that data is sold to whoever pays the most for it, and you don't own your data. And that data eventually can be used by people like banks or insurance companies to change your policy based on your friends or your behavior. And I believe that data should be owned by the individual and not by these large corporations, because I don't believe that these large corporations have your best interests in mind. Now, another major issue is that let's say a bomb goes off in France, and people go online and they change their profile picture. They write something about it, and then they don't really do anything after that. And that's called clicktivism. And what that does is it actually allows people to acknowledge a problem with doing very little about it. And it's actually counterproductive to changing something in reality because people feel like they've actually done something when in reality they've done absolutely nothing. Now, the solution for these problems is creating a one-stop shop where everybody can go and do things like, what do you have today? You have, change.org, you have debate websites like debate.org, you have all these different outlets and political websites that allow people to, either contact their senator or discuss an issue, but there's no one-stop shop that does everything from A to Z and puts it all in one place for people to actually discuss issues. So it's a streamlined system. And what the idea is to create a force multiplier. By putting everything in one place, you can magnify the voice of the people and allow them to get the most out of their actions. The other thing is that I pivoted a few months ago to at least attempt to run my system on the blockchain. Now, what I'm learning is that a lot of the technology that I want to use is still experimental and not really scalable to the point where I want to get to, but that's really where my vision is aimed towards. And I also want to challenge fake news, clickbait, and all the privacy issues that I mentioned earlier. So how am I going to do this? Now, this is my team. It's not really relevant for this presentation, so I'm just going to jump to the profile. So the profile of this system is going to identify not just like Facebook does, with your age, marital status, and things like that, but also with your ethnicity, your race, and your religion. And the purpose of that is to show that people are individuals and they're not always necessarily subject to the stereotypes that their different groups may have. And at the same time, I'm going to gamify the whole platform. And I want people's activity on the platform to be recognized, and I want it to be something that they're able to build on through continuously using the platform. So what is the platform? It's location-based. So imagine you split up the city of Toronto into all the different wards and including the municipality itself. So whether it's a municipal issue, federal issue, or provincial issue, all of that will be detailed in the question. So the question is a poll, right? Would you want a bike lane on King Street, or do you want to expand the subway line, or do you want to take on this healthcare policy or this transportation policy, whatever it may be. So you ask a question, you have yes, no, undecided, and amend. It's also important to note that the question can involve multiple questions. So you can ask whether or not you want a bike lane, then after you answer, it can flip and it can say, okay, would you rather the bike lane be on 5th Street or 6th Street? And then you could say, do you want it to turn left after that or turn right? Whatever it may be, the question can evolve over time. And instead of having a linear comment section, you're going to have the yeses on one side and the nos on the other. So instead of everyone just rambling in a straight line like you have on Facebook, where there's only one reply section, you're going to have all the yeses on one side, all the nos on the other, and it's going to be color-coded. And you can upvote and downvote the different comments like Reddit, but you're not able to upvote and downvote the side that you didn't vote on. So you can't go ahead and troll the other side while you have a different point of view. So you upvote and downvote your side. And at the same time, there's also a representation star. That representation star can only be used once per thread. So what you're doing is you're giving the people who don't have time to create a full 2-paragraph argument the right to just say, okay, this is my point of view, I want this guy to represent me. Now what's he representing you in is that the 2 highest comments at the end of that whole argument debate each other. The debate is very short, it's like 2 minutes each side. The point is that in order to take place in the final, in order to participate in the final round of voting, you need to watch both sides of the debate. And the idea is that you're educating people on both sides of an issue while at the same time giving them a platform to really get their message across in a concise manner. Now, in the final round of voting, there's only yes and no. And what the idea is that in the terms and conditions of the website, if the side advocating for the change wins this poll, it instantly generates a petition. Now, imagine 20,000 people answered, and now you have a petition with 20,000 names on it. Now, that petition, sorry, I skipped ahead here. That petition, if it reaches a certain threshold, is then tweeted to the government body in charge of the issue. And the idea is to create a refinement system for contacting your local politicians. Because what you have today is you have many websites that give you the email of your senator or the United States, and like they just get like 50,000 emails, a month, and there's no way to actually go through it. What this does is it creates a way of saying, look, this issue now has 50,000 people following it, and this is what they want done. And that Twitter account will have direct access to that thread in order for them to be able to respond directly to their people. And I've created a whole incentive program which allows the politicians to, sign up people for their newsletter, or put out lawn signs if it's an election, a way to make the politicians make it worth their while to go on the system. But the real idea is that if they don't go on the system, you want to create a fear of loss of public support, so that you're creating and forcing accountability, so that people and their politicians will be forced to discuss and debate things with each other in order to create more accountability. Now, what happens if the politician doesn't respond, or what happens if the petition is not enough? So that's when mobilization comes in. Now, we already have meetups. We're all here right now, right? So imagine if you feel like, okay, talking online about the issue wasn't enough. I want to get the most passionate people on the ground to actually get together and discuss the issue in person. And that's what the mobilize factor is. The mobilize factor allows people to then say, okay, you know what, we need to make it could be on a community level, let's make a North York discussion on bike lanes just at the local Starbucks, but it could also be on a larger level. And what that does is it fights the collectivism. It fights the ability of social media to just be something where you go and you talk about doing something and not actually do anything about it. And the last and most powerful tool is, why am I identifying based on religion, ethnicity, and race and all those things, is because I believe that the media sometimes skews the reality of how people think. And by showing real-time demographics on issues, you're able to show and filter exactly who's thinking what in real time. So you can say, how many cyclists want the bike lane and how many cyclists don't want the bike lane. How many people who ride the subway want to expand it, and how many people just don't want to pay more taxes to expand it. Or, you're able to see exactly who's thinking what in real time, which takes the ability of the media away to how they said, Hillary Clinton was going to win the election and then she lost, right? Because clearly modern day polling is not as effective as we may have once believed it to be. So by doing real-time polling, although I may not be able to create the same accurate sample, at least not in the beginning, I'll still be able to show a reality that is, can't argue with. A couple of the other features I wanted to create was an alternative news network, and that is that, instead of having a post of just, a single news article, when you post, you're going to have the same thing like the comment section. So the other side will be able to post an article that, is either adds to or is against what that article is about. So that way when you're seeing things online, it's not just like you get a 2-minute cut version of an event that, spins a story in the direction that news outlet wants to spin it, but also you'd see right next to it what the opposition was thinking, which would create more critical analysis for our generation, which I believe is very much lacking. I also want, as I said, to run it on the blockchain, and one of the things that allows me to do is create a token or a coin where I would be able to, instead of having ads, I would be able to ask questions like, for, let's say you own this building and you wanted to know whether to build a movie theater or to build a bar, right? You would be able to ask that local, neighborhood what they'd prefer. And I, as I said, want people to own their data. So I would never be selling personal data. But if you took it upon yourself to answer those questions, it would allow me not to have ads on the website, but it would also allow you to make a profit from your data. So by answering those questions and giving those companies your data, you would make the majority of the profit from those questions. So you make money while using the system, and you would not have to give up any personal data unless you chose to do so. So that, these are the different ways that I was going to set that up in order to make it a feasible company. And that's it. Thank you.
So, how do you resolve the issue where some false information that may get out into the wild suddenly receives a lot of upvotes and people start assuming that false information is true? Won't that really skew the process?
Fake news.
Right, so absolutely. So that's actually a huge problem on Reddit, right? Like interest groups can, funnel a massive amount of traffic and cause something to trend that is completely fake and creates a false environment. So the idea, the way of changing that is that, number one, you're going to be able to see who's voting on what, right? So if you right now see, 1,000 people who have, a liberal point of view all voting on something, you're going to know that that's not a balanced equation. You're going to be able to see in the pie charts underneath that it's just one demographic that thinks that way. So that vote, as much as they may win it, or as much as they may create traffic for it, would not accurately represent, an accurate sample. So you would have to use your own critical analysis to discern whether or not that was real or fake. But I also want to have a fake news button so that the people who are, instead of just having like and dislike, I want there to be like a clickbait button, a fake news button. That way the users can actually, say, okay, this is, complete BS, and it would actually show up, and moderators can then, take it off if that's what they so choose.
We're recording this, so I'm going to throw this to people asking questions, if that's okay.
Thank you for that presentation. That it actually impressed me, and I just want to ask you a question about the democracy, right? And so when we vote, basically we're just going to vote with our ID and to secure our vote, right? So everyone has just one voice to talk about their opinion. And how are you thinking to secure that, actual opinions that given by this one person, or that basically gather that all, real and accurate opinions from people?
How am I going to gather the data?
Yeah, no, I'm just asking about that. Are you basically going to, how are you going to understand that this person is a real person, or it's not fake?
Okay. Yeah.
Is there are there anything you're going to basically confirm the idea of the person, or something like that, to secure that democracy?
Absolutely. So that's first of all, the biggest problem that I'm going to face is making sure that, people aren't making fake accounts, and that it's a secure system, because otherwise I have no credibility. So there's two issues. One is that, like Airbnb today, there are lots of verification processes where, you can take a picture of your ID and driver's license or whatever, and you can verify yourself. Two-step verification. You have CAPTCHA. You have different ways. That's also a problem that blockchain really helps to solve, but as I was saying, is not yet scalable to such a large network. I mean, at least to the best of my knowledge right now. Making sure that people are real people and that they use the system, and not because they're creating fake accounts and trying to skew votes is a major issue. And creating that verification process is something I'm working very hard to do, because I forgot to mention my end goal here is to create a way for people to build political capital, which means that if you're involved in this system, you can remain anonymous throughout the system. You can, you don't have to have people knowing how you vote. You don't have to have people knowing that it's you commenting on this, or because I want people to speak their real voice. But at the end of the day, if you don't care that people know what you think, after a year of using this system and having been involved in 10 debates or whatever, you're going to actually be able to, let's say, run for a political office, and hundreds of thousands of people would know who you are, they would know how you vote, you would know your reputation. So making that credible is something I'm working very hard to do.
Over here.
You used the word sample a number of times. If you have a website that's engaging people who choose to engage, you're not sampling.
No,
It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
It's not a statistical sample, which not only affects the political issue, it also affects your business model.
No, absolutely.
Because if you're selling this data as sort of representative of the people who might want to use a particular location for something, you can't predict that the reason people sign into your website isn't somehow affecting the position they would take on what they want in a particular building in a particular place. Can't do that. So essentially, if you say, well, we've got this aggregate data, anybody who knows statistics is just going to say, well, I'm sorry, it's worthless.
Right. This is so two things. One is I'm not doing this to sell the data. This is not going to be an accurate sample of what everybody in a country is thinking at the same time, because only the people who are signing on to the internet right away, right there, you have a whole bunch of people who aren't being asked these questions. What I'm working on is creating an algorithm that eventually, if the system becomes big enough, can create something that's similar to a sample, where it would take people from all the different demographics and and merge their answer and show, this is what a sampled section would look like. It's impossible to create online voting and for it to be an accurate sample, because right off the bat there are going to be tons of people who aren't even going online to vote. So that is something that I'm working to do, but it would still, in my opinion, serve as a way to gauge, immediately. Let's say if you wanted to put up more stop signs in your neighborhood, you would be able to know right away, just based on the location, how many people were interested in something. So it would open discussion, it would open debate, and it would shed light on what people were thinking in real time.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I just have a question about your feature of the yes/no selection. I'm just thinking this age of polarization, it could easily, the discussion could turn into a very heated debate when it's only a yes/no side. What do you think of supporting non-polarization of debate or discussion instead of debate, things like that?
So there will also be multiple choice answers, and there will also be just discussion-based topics. So for example, I'm creating a location-based network, and what that means is that you'll be able to post, do you want to pick up basketball at the park down the street, and you'd be able to choose, okay, just your neighborhood with this park, and just discuss that issue and be like, okay, yeah, if we get 10 people, we'll have a game. It's going to be like a location-based discussion topic, just in general. So people will be able to post statuses similar to Facebook, but with location-based. So you're going to be able to discuss any issue and debate it in the same platform, including issues on the website. That's also something I didn't mention, is that the website is going to subject itself to the same democratic system that it's creating, meaning that if you don't want to feature saying active now in your Messenger or online in your WhatsApp, the users will be able to vote and modify the system in real time through discussion topics. So I agree that there is a lot of polarization, and sometimes discussion and regular forums would definitely be more efficient.
Yeah, it's a great website, great platform to engage people and be more open to different perspectives. But what I'm thinking is, I think accessibility might be an issue if there is an initial cost to sign up for it. I mean, the reason we are slaves to Google or Facebook is just because it's free and accessible to everyone. So, is there any can you just expand upon how you might be able to establish some sort of revenue that would allow this platform to be open and free for a lot of people who might not be able to afford to pay in to become members?
Yeah, sorry, if the last slide confused you where it said membership, this is a completely free service. The only reason I'm creating paths to revenue is to maintain it as something for free. I wrote it as a thesis for a PhD as a not-for-profit.
Okay.
I have no intention of charging for this. It would be a great barrier to signing people up. And yeah, the way I want to do that is by, instead of having ads and videos and stuff like that, I want to have private polling and share the profits with the users so that they can microfund initiatives within their own communities with that money.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, this is intriguing. A quote kept coming up in mind while I was watching downstairs here. Basically, the neuroscientist said, "We are not thinking machines; we are feeling machines that, on a rare occasion, think." What are your thoughts on the role of emotion in the decision-making process? Is that something that goes into systems?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't trust people's emotions, and I believe people make emotional decisions all the time, which are counterproductive to what might be best for the country. So I'm not advocating here for a direct democracy. As I was explaining to some people earlier, direct democracy is, the idea that in Sweden right now you can run for politics and you could say, if you vote for me, I'll poll every time there's a discussion in the Legislative Assembly, every time there's a vote, and however you guys poll is how I'm going to vote. That's a direct democracy, and that's kind of where I got the inspiration for this system. But I'm not trying to recreate democracy. I'm trying to make our current system more efficient than it is. And what the idea is that you're still going to have that politician there at the end who can respond. You're still going to have the politician who has the ability to say no to the people. There's going to be issues with things like, intelligence, where you can't share all the information on a subject. And I'm not trying to create, as I said, anarchy. I'm trying to reform, what I believe to be a little bit of a broken system. And by doing that, I maintain the current system, and I allow the politicians to make the final answer without, the people, giving them power to make emotional decisions, and which could possibly be, create negative outcomes.
Riley's gonna be the last question.
Okay, thanks. So my question too is also kind of around like accessibility and just wondering like who this platform would kind of give more power to, like in terms of when you're asking about like, for example, do you want to pay higher property taxes to pay for more transit? The people, I feel like this would be for people who are like already super like hyper political, and maybe not the people who that would be affecting most, like who TTC cuts would be affecting most, whereas they might not have as much time to like come on here and kind of debate these kinds of things, where like, I don't know, it's just something I was kind of thinking about. It might give some politicians more of an opportunity to like say, hey, my constituents don't want to pay higher property taxes to pay for housing, because they have more time and resources to kind of like go on here and on Twitter and debate these kind of things.
Yeah, no, that is definitely a problem. Being able to reach the most amount of people, get a wide perspective about what's going on. And the idea is how many people in this room have signed a change.org petition, right? There you go. Most of you have, right? And how many of you have created a change.org petition? One.
I feel like this is a really biased sample group.
Definitely. But if only one of everyone who just raised a hand created that initiative, it goes to show that what I'm creating is a massive amount of shareability. So you can share the poll, you can share the petition, you can share the debate, and the idea is that people who are interested in transportation are going to see, okay, there's a transportation issue going on right now. I'm interested in that, so they share it, and then they might have friends that are interested in transportation, and they would actually come on and vote on it. So the idea is that not everyone is going to be able to discuss, gun control, and if not all of them are going to be gun owners discussing gun control, but in the system it's going to ask you, do you ride the subway, or do you own a gun, or like it's going to try to create a profile on the user so that the demographics can show, which side of the issue is voting, and if it's just, whether it's the subway riders or not, stuff like that. So I'm trying to solve these problems, but yes, it definitely would be.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much.